Hello, 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 and welcome to a Thursday night live stream. Let me know if you can hear me and see me. My name is Natalie. I am a criminal defense attorney based in the great state of Maryland, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this channel today. We're going to be covering the case of James Comey and his indictment. He has been indicted by the Department of Justice, President Donald Trump's Department of Justice. And I want to go through the indictment with you, go through the controversy around it, and his proposed defense of malicious prosecution. Let me know. Okay, you guys can hear me. You can see me. Okay, great. Great. We are going to get started very shortly. Please make sure that you do me the favor of liking the video. So please like the video. Please subscribe if you're not subscribed. If you're interested in a perspective from a criminal defense attorney on popular legal topics as they intersect with not only the news, but our social media environment, celebrities, then please make sure that you stick around. Yes, I haven't said that in forever. Please take your shoes off and like the video. Please take your shoes off and like the video. In addition, someone did just say this, Letitia James was also indicted today. I have, thank you so much, Dr. Barry. Thank you so much. I am going, I think, to cover both of those indictments, and I might end up changing the title of the video in post-production. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and let's get started. We'll do our introduction right now, and we'll get right into it. Once again, thank you all so much for joining us. We have at 3 minutes into the stream, 104 people. And we're going to get right into this because it's quite a serious topic. So I like to start with some background on the person that we are talking about. And usually Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia, is where I'll go to first. And that's just for convenience sake. Please always make sure that you check your sources. And thankfully, Wikipedia is one of the better free online research sites, I believe, because at least you can kind of get an overview. They provide you with links. You can check those links, and then usually the links will have the primary source. Always remember that things like Wikipedia are not primary sources of information. A primary source of news or information comes from the word of mouth of the person themselves. Documents, books written on the topic can sometimes be primary sources depending on how they were generated. But usually Wikipedia is more of a tertiary source. It kind of it's different contributors who go through different documents and links and articles and research, and they put it all together to tell you about this person or topic or phrase or whatever the case may be. So always make sure to check your sources. I'm going to make the text large because My eyesight is fading as I'm getting older, and I'm gonna have to start wearing my glasses again too. And who knows? But I'm gonna need this, and maybe this will be helpful to our anyone who is millennial and up, elder millennial. I'm an elder millennial and up to see this. So, oh, also let me make sure that I pull up the stream on my phone. I hate the sound of my own voice, so that I can see you guys. Let me make sure that I greet you all. So Sweet Baby Ray 2, E150 Gal, Law Nerd Amber, and Shells in VA are the first three people that I'm seeing. So hello and welcome to all of you. And Trig just says, "Oh, I can see. Appreciate it," says Alicia. Same, Natalie, same, says E150 Gal. Okay, so I'm not alone. Bigger text. It's reminding me of my mom. As she got older, used to order, and my grandma too used to not. Yeah, you could like phone order them in. You could call into like a catalog and order Bibles, and they used to order their Bibles with the really big print. But my mom was very steadfast that all the words of Jesus had to be in red. So it had to be big print, words of Jesus in red. She didn't play about that. And that's how I'm becoming my mother. I'm just can't see anything. James Bryan Comey Jr., born December 14th, 1960, is an American lawyer who was the seventh director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation from 2013 until his termination. So he was fired by Donald Trump in Donald Trump's first term in May of 2017. During the presidential administration, and this is also for my watchers who may not be from the United States and may not be familiar with who all these people are, but maybe in where you are, it blipped up on your news that the former FBI director was indicted by the current president of the United States, his Justice Department. So we can just go from there so you can know who he is, because you may not. During the presidential administration of George W. Bush, Comey was the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York from January of 2022 to December of 2000. From January of 2002 to December of 2003, and later the United States Deputy Attorney General from December of 2003 to August of 2005. In August 2005, Comey left the U.S. Department of Justice to become a senior vice president of Lockheed Martin as general counsel. Ooh, I know that job paid. In 2010, he became general counsel at Bridgewater Associates. What it means to be general counsel. Senior vice president, that's obviously like a business designation. I don't do business, so I don't know anything about that. But when you're general counsel, that is when a company will hire you to represent them and their interests. Another way to call it is of counsel. In 2010, he became general counsel at Bridgewater Associates. In early 2013, he left Bridgewater to become a senior research scholar at Hertog Fellow on national security law at Columbia Law School. Oh, I have a friend that went to Columbia Law. He served on the board of directors of HSBC Holdings until July of 2013. In September 2013, Barack Obama appointed Comey to the position of director of the FBI. In that capacity, he was responsible for overseeing the FBI's investigation of the Hillary Clinton email controversy. His role in the 2016 U.S. presidential election was highly controversial. Some analysts claim his decision shortly before the 2016 election might have cost her the presidency, which is one of the ironies of this, that Comey is being attacked. And I am going to just speak plainly here. And I welcome dissenting opinions, but I believe that he is being attacked by the Trump presidency, that Trump sees him as an enemy, and he is prosecuting his enemies that either have prosecuted him or not done the things that he's wanted them to do or called him into question in any way. He is getting retaliation for what happened after his first administration. So the irony, I was going to say, the whole reason I bring that up is the irony of Donald Trump indicting, or Trump's Justice Department indicting James Comey, is that James Comey is credited by some political analysts, and I am not, again, politically savvy enough to say one way or the other. I think many things were a factor in Hillary Clinton losing the presidential election in 2016 and Donald Trump winning. Many, many things were a factor. I don't think that you can put everything on this one event, but many analysts believe that this was critical to Donald Trump winning the election, was that on the eve of the election, Comey broke the Hillary Clinton email controversy, and that the FBI was investigating her for using her personal server to download and view confidential emails at home in her role as I think Secretary of State, I think is what her role was. I can't even remember. But either way, it was her role within the government in the Obama administration. It was believed that she made um, uh, inadvisable at the least and potentially unethical or dangerous access to private and sensitive United States information that only she would have been privy to, that would have potentially put national security at risk. That was the criticism of her, and she was being investigated by the FBI for it. And James Comey broke that investigation on the eve of the election. In doing so, it gave legitimacy to the criticism from the right that Hillary Clinton was corrupt, the Clintons were corrupt, and that they could not be trusted. There are arguments on both sides as to whether or not what Hillary Clinton did was right or wrong, but I think that it's fair to say that it was certainly something that was at the time worth an investigation. Now it is clear that the executive branch of the United States government frequently accesses confidential information in inappropriate ways, such as with the Trump administration currently, the 2024, 2025, however you would call them, Trump administration. They were talking about national security issues in a Signal chat. So that certainly would not be, protected way to communicate about national security issues. However, this at the time was a bombshell. There was this rule at the time that James Comey made this big press conference to say that they were investigating Hillary Clinton, to say on the eve of an election, no official within the government should do anything to sway the voters one way or the other. But that was a norm. It's not a rule. It's not a law. It was a norm that you would not do anything on the eve of an election. Now, it just kind of is what it is. So he was criticized for his decision to reopen the investigation into her emails less than 2 weeks before the election. That's the big issue. He was a registered Republican for most of his adult life, but in 2016, he stated he was unaffiliated. On June 14th of 2018, the Department of Justice Inspector General Michael E. Horowitz released his report on the FBI's handling of Clinton's email investigation, which criticized Comey's actions during the 2016 election. It was widely panned. It was widely seen as him being a Republican who was interfering with the election by putting out negative, controversial information about Hillary Clinton. Nothing actually did come of that investigation. It was an investigation. It wasn't found that any national security secrets were actually leaked or anyone was harmed, or that she had in any way used the information in an inappropriate way. The question was how she accessed it more than anything. Trump fired Comey on May 9th of 2017 upon recommendation of the Department of Justice, which stated that Comey had mishandled the Clinton email investigation. Another point of irony, because he had mishandled it. What did they believe he mishandled it because he was not able to convict Clinton of anything? Or did he mishandle it because he had that big showy press conference on the eve of the election, which some believe impacted the outcome of the election? One might say that given the pattern of Donald Trump, that his issue with Comey was that Comey did not actually prosecute Hillary Clinton. Statements from Trump and the White House suggested that Comey had also been fired to ease the pressure Trump was under due to the Mueller investigation. Donald Trump was being investigated by Robert Mueller. At the time, there was a massive investigation, lots and lots of hearings. Later that month, Comey allegedly arranged for a friend to leak to the press a memo he had written after a private meeting with the president. Comey denies wrongdoing. The memo said that Trump had asked him to end the FBI's investigation into Michael Flynn. So this would be the real reason that Trump would have fired Comey. Trump would have kept Comey on, I believe, because he would have seen him as an ally. It was the eve of the election, just days before, and Comey's coming out with this damaging information that made many people, I think, rightfully question whether or not Hillary Clinton was fit to serve. Either if she could be trusted to serve, let's put it that way. I voted for her despite what he did. I'm going to let you all know that. It did not impact my decision, but it impacted some people's decision. And so I think why he really was fired was because of this Michael Flynn issue. They wanted to end the investigation into Michael Flynn. The dismissal, various memos detailing meetings with Trump, and Comey's subsequent congressional testimony in June that same year were interpreted by some commentators as evidence of obstruction of justice on Trump's part and became part of the Mueller investigation. Horowitz found that Comey violated FBI policy with the leaked memos, but saw no evidence he or his lawyer shared classified information. Basically, Comey was warning the country that Trump was President Trump. I'm going to say president. People voted for him. He's the president, right? That President Trump was putting pressure on him to end an investigation into Mike Flynn. That is per se obstruction of justice. The president trying to impact the Justice Department, even though they're members of the executive branch as well. They should have a level of independence from the president of the United States to conduct investigations as they see fit. However, he tried to pressure Comey to intercede and end the investigation. Comey told the United States, just like he did with Hillary Clinton, and Trump didn't appreciate it, allegedly, and President Trump allegedly fired him as a result of that. In August of 2019, the Office of the Inspector General found Comey's retention, handling, and dissemination of the memos violated the Department of Justice policies, FBI policies, and his FBI employee agreement. I would guess that would absolutely be the case. You had a private conversation with the president and you leaked it to the public. However, there should be whistleblower protections, and I think that what Comey was doing was akin to whistleblowing. In December of 2019, Horowitz released a report finding no political bias against Trump by Comey. I would think not, as he was a lifelong Republican, or other FBI officials in their Russia probe, although other DOJ officials criticized that conclusion. In September of 2025, Comey was indicted by a federal grand jury on one charge of making false statements and one charge of obstruction. He has pled not guilty. So let us look to this indictment itself. It is brought in the United States District Court, Eastern District of Virginia. So right across the bridge from me, right over there in Virginia. I think I've told you guys before, I live in what's called the DMV, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. So I shared with you guys I went to the National Mall to run my long run this past Sunday, and I was running I was looping around the mall essentially to get the miles that I needed. And somebody said, I didn't realize you were so close to the White House. Yeah, I live about on the weekend, no traffic, about 20 minutes away from the White House. On a weekday with traffic, about 35 minutes away from the White House. I live pretty close to the White House. I live about a 10 minutes drive from Virginia, and to DC itself, I just need to cross over the 295 about 15 minutes or something. So this whole area is very much impacted. Where I live is very much impacted by what's happening right now. On a daily basis, I see the National Guard. ICE is all over the area. There's a lot going on here that I haven't really been talking about and won't talk about on this channel. But it's interesting that so much news and history is happening all around us. It's very bizarre. Oh, no, I have not run the Marine Corps Marathon. I'm signed up for the Army 10 miler, and I was signed up for the Georgetown half last weekend, but that was canceled because of the government shutdown. So right now the government is shut down. They are fighting over a spending bill. And as a result of that, public services are pretty much at a standstill in DC. So any of the races that I have that are scheduled are probably not going to happen while the government is shut down. The Georgetown half marathon was canceled. the Army 10 miler that I'm supposed to do on Saturday or Sunday. They sent us a letter saying a note saying that they're still hoping that it will go forward, but it probably won't go forward because it's, Friday is tomorrow, and I don't think the government's going to be unshut down tomorrow. Yeah, John says he's a Maryland, D.C. lawyer, can confirm. It's wild right now. It's just really, really crazy to see what's going on. My husband practices in D.C. I practice in Maryland. And, you have like the Department of Homeland Security is like policing the streets and arresting people. Um, it's not good. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to do street patrols, so they're hurting people. And yeah, it's bad. Let's look at the indictment. So, count one, false statements within the jurisdiction of the legislative branch of the United States government. 18 U.S.C. 1001 A2. And we'll look at the statute as well. On or about September 30th of 2020, in the Eastern District of Virginia, the defendant, James R. Comey Jr., did willfully and knowingly make a materially false, fictitious, and fraudulent statement in a manner within the jurisdiction of the legislative branch of the government of the United States by falsely stating to United States Senator during a U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee hearing that he, James B. Comey Jr., had not authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports regarding an FBI investigation concerning person one. That statement was false because, as James B. Comey Jr. then and there knew, he in fact had authorized person three to serve as an anonymous source in news reports regarding an FBI investigation concerning person one. It's either Mike Flynn or Donald Trump. I'm assuming person one is Mike Flynn. All in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1001 A2. And then count two, obstruction of a congressional proceeding. On or about September 30th of 2020 in the Eastern District of Virginia, the defendant, James B. Comey Jr., did corruptly endeavor to influence, obstruct, and impede the due and proper exercise of the power of inquiry under which an investigation was being had before the Senate Judiciary Committee by making false and misleading statements before that committee. And Lindsay Halligan is the U.S. attorney who is on this case. So let us turn to 18 U.S.C. 1001 A2. So 18 U.S.C. 1001, statements or entries generally. Except as otherwise provided in this section, whoever, in any manner within the jurisdiction of the executive, legislative, or judicial branch of the government of the United States, willfully and knowingly, or knowingly and willfully, I read that backwards, 1, falsifies, conceals, or covers up by any trick, scheme, or device a material fact. 2, and this is the one he's facing, makes any materially false, fictitious, or fraudulent statement or representation, let's jump down because 3 doesn't apply, shall be fined under this title, imprisoned not more than 5 years, or if the offense involves internal or domestic terrorism, imprisoned not more than 8 years or both. So he's facing up to 5 years on that count and a potential fine. Subsection A does not apply to a party to a judicial proceeding or that party's counsels for statements, representations, writings, or documents submitted by such party or counsel to a judge or magistrate in that proceeding. So let's kind of take a beat, with this. Just give me 1 second. I'm good, guys. I'm good. I just collected myself. Give me sorry about that. I didn't realize that I was gonna get upset. It's kind of silly. So if we look here to the New York Times and their most recent article on it, again, check your own sources as well, whatever, news source that you like, but also look at multiple other news sources and look at kind of how they talk about it. Lawyers for the former FBI director sought clarity on the details of the indictment against him and said it was filed only after pressure from President Trump. Here we go. James Comey has, of course, pled not guilty to these charges. James Comey, the former FBI director targeted by President Trump, pleaded not guilty on Wednesday to charges he lied to Congress. His lawyers said he would move to quickly dismiss the case, calling it a vindictive and selective prosecution. Mr. Comey, wearing a dark suit and accompanied by his family, stood on his full 6'8" height. Oh my God. Got to add a little drama in here. He's 6'8", guys, to offer his plea and a thank you very much to District Judge Michael Nachmanoff during a brisk court appearance that began 5 minutes early and lasted less than half an hour. If the hearing offered a guide to the defense's strategy, it revealed little new about a case deemed so weak by career prosecutors in the Eastern District of Virginia that they refused to have anything to do with it. So prosecutors there in the Eastern District have refused to take this case up. They've been wanting to indict James Comey for a while now, and they couldn't find a prosecutor to do it. People were resigning, people were getting fired, and now we finally landed on this one who decided to bring the prosecution, right? That reluctance forced the White House to quickly insert a stand-in U.S. attorney to file the indictment. Mr. Comey's lead lawyer, Patrick Fitzgerald, vented his exasperation in the hearing, saying that his first substantive contact with prosecutors came Tuesday night. He said he still had not received specific details of the charges. It's very, very lacking in details, including the identities of witnesses, because it's person one, person two, beyond the 2-page indictment approved by a split grand jury on September 25th, which means they didn't even get a unanimous grand jury. That is very telling because they have an old school saying that you can indict a ham sandwich, which means it's really, really easy to procure an indictment. A grand jury is a secret proceeding in which members of the community are called in to look at evidence that is presented to them only by the prosecution. It is non-adversarial. The defendant has no right to be there to defend themselves because all they're doing is deciding whether or not there's probable cause to bring the charges. It is a glaring red flag when the prosecution is unable to obtain an indictment. Either they're unable to obtain the indictment because the case is so lacking in evidence that the grand jury could not even say that this person should be charged. That's rare. Or, as I think would happen with a lot of those police shooting cases, the prosecutors are actively trying not to get an indictment. You have to try not to get an indictment. Here, they're trying to get an indictment, and they got it just by the skin of their teeth, which tells me something about the lack of strength, the weakness of this indictment. The indictment of Mr. Comey is the most significant legal action yet taken against those Mr. Trump has publicly targeted for retribution. It came shortly after the president all but commanded Attorney General Pam Bondi to take legal action against Mr. Comey, Senator Adam B. Schiff, a California Democrat, and New York Attorney General Letitia James, who successfully prosecuted Trump in a civil case. If the intention of Mr. Trump and his allies was to humiliate Mr. Comey, they appeared to lose round one. The immediate response was backlash, ridicule on the Trump administration. Unless you're talking about his hardcore supporters, they're always going to support him no matter what. So that is what it is. However, from the legal community, attorneys that practice law in this area, the indictment was panned. It is so lacking. We have looked at federal indictments here on the channel. We've covered the federal indictment of Diddy. I think we've looked at the federal indictment of, I can't remember. It was a famous person, but we've looked at several federal indictments here. Federal indictments are usually detailed and specific. Their indictments don't need to be detailed and specific, but they usually are. This one was extremely lacking in detail and information. An uninitiated observer might even have mistaken the defense for the prosecution on Wednesday, given the lopsided power dynamic. To the judge's right stood Mr. Comey, the former head of the FBI and the Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office, and Mr. Fitzgerald, a former federal prosecutor known for winning convictions in major terrorism and public corruption cases. On the left, at the prosecutor's table, sat Lindsay Halligan, who was making her second ever appearance as a prosecutor after she was hastily installed by Mr. Trump as the U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia last month, meaning she's only been in court. This is the second time as a prosecutor. She's not a new lawyer, she's a new prosecutor. And the first case that she's prosecuting is James Comey, because no other career prosecutor would do it. She was picked after her predecessor was ousted after finding insufficient evidence to indict Mr. Comey. Her predecessor looked into whether or not they could indict Mr. Comey for making false statements to Congress, found that they did not have enough evidence, and so then that person was fired, and then Miss Halligan was taken on and appointed in the position, even though she had no experience as a prosecutor. Miss Halligan, a former insurance, oh my God, I did not know that. Let me tell you something right now. What I'm about to say is in no way whatsoever meant to downgrade insurance lawyers. Insurance lawyers do, on both the plaintiff and defense side, do extremely difficult work. Time-consuming, hard, long hours, very, very tough. Like all lawyering pretty much is. But that's not an easy practice of law. But an insurance lawyer, right? A career insurance lawyer taking over one of the biggest criminal prosecutions in the United States right now as their first prosecution would be, like me, an experienced criminal defense attorney who has nearly 16 years of experience under my belt, who has tried 2 jury, maybe about 30 homicides. Oh, dang. Oh, that's an outdated number. Now that I think about it, it's more. A lot of homicides. I think we're going up on 50 now. I got to go and look at my list for homicides only. Hundreds of criminal cases to a jury. Thousands of cases to trial altogether. And if I went and I tried an insurance case or dealt with an insurance case, it would be like a 3-year-old picking up a law book for the first time. It would be like trying to eat soup with a fork. Just think about it in another context. It would be like a pediatrician performing heart surgery. It would be like a cardiologist. What's a good one? Performing brain surgery. Okay? Oh, why, thank you, Mary W. I am far beyond 30. Your girl's 41. 41 out in these streets. I'm very, very proud to be 41 years old. I don't know what it is. Dr. Barry is saying the same thing. I don't know what it is about being 40. It is just, I feel amazing. It's like the best time of my life. I can't even tell you, despite what's going on in the world, right? I feel amazing. Anyway, an insurance attorney has no business prosecuting James Comey for lying to Congress and obstruction of justice. Just no business whatsoever. And I don't think that that's offensive to say, because I could not do what they do. It just makes no sense. Sorry, I'm lost where I was. Here I am. So Miss Halligan is a former insurance lawyer, but she did not speak in court. Instead, she spent the hearing rocking and nodding in her chair as a junior federal prosecutor. Oh my goodness. This means she really doesn't know what she's doing. I'm very glad we read this article. So if anything, I can give you insight on what these things mean when you read through them. So no one would prosecute this case within the I'm sorry, I know it's Virginia, but just one more second. I want to get the exact name right. The Eastern District of Virginia, Alexandria Division. Literally right there. Like I could probably see it from the back door. But anyway, the Alexandria Division. No one in the Eastern District of Virginia would bring this case. They couldn't even find a prosecutor to bring this case. They had to go and get an insurance lawyer and designate her as a prosecutor to bring this case. And then nobody in Virginia would even sit with her to help her. She doesn't have the ability to do anything in court. She doesn't know what she's doing. So they had to get a junior attorney from North Carolina to speak on behalf of the Justice Department, not the lead attorney. That is embarrassing. Once Mr. Fitzgerald requested a jury trial on Mr. Comey's behalf, Judge Nachmanoff, a Biden appointee and former federal public defender, made it clear he wanted a move quickly. He initially suggested the matter could be wrapped up by mid-December, but set a trial date for January 5th after both sides wanted a bit more time. The prosecutor, this case is getting thrown out. This case isn't going anywhere. This case isn't going anywhere. Ain't no way a former federal public defender is going to allow this to get past, motions to dismiss. Nathaniel Tyler Lemons, the prosecutor, this is the North Carolina prosecutor, not even one from Virginia. There's an entire office in Alexandria. An entire office in Alexandria filled with prosecutors who have been there for years, know the judge, understand the law, understand the jurisdiction, right? Understand the jurors that would be called in from the local community, understand all of that. And they all refused to take the case. And so they had to get this guy from North Carolina. He drew the judge's impatience when he suggested that the government needed time to introduce classified evidence and argued that the case, which hinges on a single accusation that Mr. Comey lied during a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing, was complex. It's so complex. There's nothing complex about it. Either he lied during the hearing about the anonymous source or he didn't. I'm a little skeptical, Judge Nachmanoff replied. This does not appear to me to be an overly complicated case. And it's not. This, I think, politically would be something that they would want to drag out. But legally speaking, when it comes to clogging up the court's time, the court is about time standards. Okay. They want the discovery in by a certain period of time because there's rules that designate that under every constitution, be it state or the United States Constitution, will designate that you have a due process right to receiving the evidence that the state intends to introduce at trial and any evidence that could potentially prove that you're not guilty. So discovery and Brady. Brady is evidence that could tend to prove that you're not guilty or diminish your sentence. The state has to provide that to you within a certain period of time. And that time in my state is 30 days after the entrance of appearance of counsel. It's not always, on time. It usually isn't on time. But what it does is it starts that clock ticking. In some cases, if discovery comes too late, it can end up with the case being dismissed because your client's due process rights were violated because they didn't get a chance to see how the state is going to prove the case against them, right? So the judge is going to want that discovery right away in this case. Put up and show me the evidence you intend to use against Mr. Comey. Then on top of that, they're going to have motions hearings. They're going to have status conferences. They have this trial date, and everything has to be done before this trial date on January 5th. Yes, a continuance is possible, but it's unlikely where the judge is a little skeptical about how complex the case actually is. Mr. Comey's arraignment, for all its brevity, was considerably more eventful than typical preliminary proceedings. Yeah, most arraignments are about 5 to 10 minutes. These are your charges. Do you have an attorney? If you don't have an attorney, I'm going to tell you what the charges are and explain them to you. If you do have an attorney, your attorney is going to explain them to you. We're going to set a trial date. We're going to set a motions date. We're going to set a speedy trial date. have a nice day. It's usually very fast. So the fact that it was 30 minutes long is actually quite protracted for an initial appearance. In the most significant development, Mr. Fitzgerald, so this is with the defense, said he intended to file 2 motions to dismiss this case. The first will accuse the government of vindictive and selective prosecution based on Mr. Trump's public demand that Mr. Comey be prosecuted. This is unprecedented within the United States, that the president of the United States demands that a private citizen be prosecuted and that the Justice Department follows suit and prosecutes that person, despite the fact that the members of the Justice Department don't want to. They have to get fired, and then the president installs someone who will do it for him. It's unprecedented. It's not done because there is supposed to be a level of autonomy between the Department of Justice and the President of the United States. That is to keep the appearance of fairness and also the appearance that it's not corrupt, that people aren't being prosecuted simply on the whims of one human being, that they're being prosecuted because an actual investigation was done, and that prosecutors that have a thing called prosecutorial discretion are exercising it independently of any outside forces. The president telling the Justice Department to indict Comey goes against all of that. And in fact, it's unethical on the behalf of the attorneys who do it. Because if you do not, it is not political that the attorneys of the Justice Department refuse to bring the prosecution. Under the rules of professional conduct, there is a rule that for prosecutors, they must exercise independent discretion and they must do justice. Prosecutors are different from other attorneys. Prosecutors are different from defense attorneys. Prosecutors swear an oath to the United States, and if they're a state prosecutor, to the state that they are representing. And their job in swearing that oath is to protect the citizens of the community. And therefore, when they bring and that's why they're supposed to have independent prosecutorial discretion, meaning it's completely up to them who they decide to prosecute and who they don't. And no outside forces are supposed to intervene and try to pressure them to prosecute someone. We have seen on this channel, when we've covered some silly sovereign citizen cases, First Amendment auditors, you'll see people acting up in court and say, why doesn't the judge have this person charged? The judge should tell them to charge this person for this crazy thing that they did. And I always say the judge can't do that because the prosecutors are independent of the judges. Now, to be fair, the judges are in the judicial branch. The prosecutors are in the executive branch. Those are 2 different branches of government. And so because of the separation of power, the legislative branch, the judicial branch, the executive branch, neither one of them should be telling the other what to do in certain aspects. And so the judges should never be able to tell or pressure prosecutors to prosecute or not prosecute a case. To also be fair, Donald Trump, as president of the United States, is the head of the executive branch of government, right? He is the top of the executive branch of government. The Department of Justice is under the executive branch of government. However, that department is supposed to have independence from the president so that they can bring prosecutions that are within the prosecutorial discretion, meaning that this prosecutor who is trained in the law, who is trained in the facts, who is trained in ethics, is doing this prosecution simply because it is the right thing to do, or they genuinely believe that they have enough evidence to prove that this person is guilty of a crime. And in fact, if a prosecutor brings a prosecution where they do not believe that they have enough evidence to prove that someone is guilty of a crime, it is unethical. And it's supposed to result in you losing your license to practice law. And I'm so serious about that. Malicious prosecution as a defense, rightfully proven in court, should result in a prosecutor being stripped of their ability to even practice law, much less lose their job. They should lose their license to practice law if they bring a prosecution for malicious purposes, meaning they're prosecuting to harass someone or they're prosecuting for political reasons where there is not enough facts and law to prove that this person committed a crime. The second will seek to challenge what he called the illegal appointment of Ms. Halligan as U.S. Attorney. Judge Nachmanoff said he would rule on the first and outsource the question of Ms. Halligan's appointment to another judge. So basically, because she's appearing in front of him, he's going to separate that issue to another judge so he can just deal with the merits of the case. I think that's very, very smart. I don't know if Ms. Halligan is rightfully appointed. However, given the fact that the executive branch of the government, through the Supreme Court of the United States, which is in the judicial branch of government, through the Supreme Court of the United States, has been given a lot of authority to basically do things unilaterally, I would anticipate that any challenge to her appointment would be seen as the discretion of the executive and not be overturned. But I could be wrong. I just seriously doubt that anything would be done to remove Miss Halligan from the case while the case is active. But it might likely end up going up to the Supreme Court on that issue, no matter the outcome of the case. And I'm glad that he's raising that challenge because I would like to see what the SCOTUS says. The government told the judge that it expects Mr. Comey's trial to last 2 to 3 days. That is extremely short for a federal prosecution. Extremely short, at least a week most of the times. And they'll go 2-3 weeks at times. That this is a very thin case. The judge tentatively scheduled a follow-up hearing later this month and released Mr. Comey on his own recognizance. Your own recognizance, sorry, this is bothering me. I don't know why they put physical tags in clothes anymore. Just print it. Just print it on the inside of the clothes. I know what side is the front. I know what side is the back. I don't even need a tag. Get this thing out of here. It's so itchy. The government told the judge that it expects Mr. Comey's trial to last 2 to 3 days. The judge tentatively scheduled a follow-up hearing later this month and released Mr. Comey on his own recognizance with no restrictions on his travel or other activities. Politics shadowed the sunny sixth-floor courtroom, crammed to overflow with reporters, supporters of Mr. Comey, and a small contingent of local residents. A handful of protesters staged a decorous, nearly noiseless anti-Trump protest outside the courthouse, including one woman who brandished a sign that read, "Show Trial," as in this trial is a show. Mr. Comey faces up to 5 years in prison if convicted, though many current and former prosecutors believe this case will be difficult to prove if his lawyers do not succeed in getting the charges quickly dismissed. He made no immediate public comments after the hearing. Ms. Halligan, who narrowly secured a 2-count indictment after a shaky solo appearance before the grand jury, has had a hard time getting anyone in her new office to help her with the case, according to current and former prosecutors in the office. 2 prosecutors who work in the Eastern District of North Carolina, Tyler Lemons and Gabriel Diaz, gave official notice on Tuesday that they have been assigned to the case, according to court records. The case has cast a corrosive pall over the Eastern District of Virginia. Just give me a second here. I've expressed issues with the New York Times. However, I've never stopped reading it because I really enjoy the writing. Cast a corrosive pall is such beautiful wording. And I think you guys have figured out I'm a big reader. I love to read in my free time. So unfortunately, not as frequently as I'd like to. But right now I'm reading a book called Dream Count by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. And it is very, very good. And she is a wordsmith. And Cast a Corrosive Pall puts me in mind of that. Just lovely wording. Over the Eastern District of Virginia, one of the most important federal prosecutor's offices in the nation. Yes, especially when it comes to anti-terrorism. This and the Eastern District of New York, because the Eastern District of Virginia, the Eastern District of New York deal with really important things for the United States. You got to remember, DC is right there, right? You have so many issues coming up in this area. You don't want these career prosecutors to quit and protest. We need them. They are protecting us. And I'm saying that as a public defender. I say the same thing about the Prince George's County State's Attorney's Office. I need them to be at their best. I need them to do their best work because I live in this county and I love my community and I want it to be safe. And I want everyone's rights to be protected. And that's why I do my job as a public defender, right? So there's a balance here where I don't, as a person who respects the rule of law and respects its import in our society. The last thing I would want is for our career prosecutors to start quitting their jobs left and right because of political pressure to bring prosecutions in cases that they don't think are supported by the law. Eric Siebert, the district's former U.S. attorney, came under pressure from Trump after telling his superiors in the Justice Department that there was not enough evidence against Mr. Comey, or in a separate potential case, Miss James. That's Letitia James. We're gonna look at her indictment soon. Mr. Siebert quit on September 19th, hours after the president called for his ouster. So anyone that said that they wouldn't do it, they were fired. This is insane. This is insane, America. This was not happening before. It's against our norms. It's against our ethics. Since then, the Justice Department appointees have fired without cause 2 career prosecutors who also objected to the Comey indictment. Other officials in the Eastern District of Virginia have applied for jobs on the outside or have written memos justifying their actions in case they have to contest personnel actions or sue the department. Because here's the thing, the reason people are quitting or refusing to the point of getting fired is because at some point in time, Donald Trump will no longer be president. These people have to maintain their license to practice law far after that. When you become a lawyer, you become a lawyer to the detriment of everything else in your life. Law school is extremely taxing and time consuming and expensive. If you're working in public service, which these prosecutors are public servants, they are not getting paid commiserate to their experience. Your entire life is dependent upon you maintaining that license to practice law. And you likely have a moral compass that in some way instructs that you should use your ability as a litigator not to make mergers and acquisitions between Fortune 500 companies, which ain't nothing wrong with that. Make your money, not to be of counsel for a major corporation, not to be in one of the big law firms to work up the associate to partner track, right? But to sacrifice massive amounts of income, sleep, relationships, friendships, and your physical health to do these jobs where we, and I say we because on the prosecutor side and on the defense side, we're equally working as hard to protect the interest of our clients. For them, their client is the people, right? The residents, the citizens of the United States. For defense attorneys, our client are individual people. And so while prosecutors have to do justice, they have to do justice for the entire community, which I was saying before and I got off track, is different for us defense attorneys who we are only protecting the interest of our clients, and that's it. The interest of our clients, and that's it. To the detriment of everyone else. We protect our clients over the witnesses, the victims, the everything. We lay down on top of them. We fall on our sword. We do whatever we can do to protect them. That's what the prosecutors, the United States government prosecutors, is supposed to be doing for all of us. So even if they don't politically agree with James Comey, it's their job to lay down and protect him. And if they feel like it is unjust to prosecute him, they are violating their oath that they took to the United States of America to protect the citizens of the United States of America. If they're quitting in protest, it means that their license to practice law and their ethical duties and obligations, and maybe even their own personal sensibilities, are worth more than this job that they had to fight for. Many people believe that members of the government who are attorneys for the government somehow, either a state government or federal government, or the federal government, are somehow less than. They don't make as much money. We don't look as cool, right? But they're not. These are top of the class attorneys who sacrificed hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to competitively apply for that job because a lot of people want those jobs, and then sacrifice to get and to keep it. And they would rather quit that than to unjustly prosecute someone. The bare bones 2-page indictment, it's so de minimis, it's ridiculous, against Mr. Comey was signed only by Halligan, a former defense lawyer for Mr. Trump, who had been serving as a mid-level lawyer in the office of the White House staff secretary. Mr. Comey was indicted on 1 count of making a false statement and 1 count of obstruction of a congressional proceeding in connection with his testimony before a Senate committee in September of 2020. Court records indicate that Ms. Halligan also failed to get the grand jury to indict Mr. Comey on a second false statement charge. That's the end of that That's the end of that article. I am going to check in with you guys in the comment section. Wow, nice. 314. Please make sure that you like the video. Take off your shoes. Get comfortable with us. Okay. So let me see what you guys are saying in the comments. First, let me start here. Eileen, I turned 40 on Tuesday. This is to share the love. Thank you for the super chat. And everyone, please say happy birthday to Eileen. And TJ Diamonds 26. Welcome to the Lawyer Chicklets. Thank you very, very, very much. Okay, so let's go. James says, my wife has a weird shirt. She needed me to double check if it was on right. Pretty much have to wear it and find the long side to know. Okay, see, look at, oh. Are you guys talking about me taking out my tag? I'm like, what is that about? Let me go backwards. A happy birthday. Happy birthday. I hope Halligan, the prosecutor, loses her license to practice law. You know, it's not looking good for your girl. It's not looking good for a lot of the people that are choosing to not exercise their independence. Eroyu, I don't know, Paul. Weaponizing the military against the American people, specifically political opponents, is pretty fascist. James says as no one's required to watch if they don't like it. We've managed to stay pretty non-political given the discussion. And I would appreciate that. And thank you. I would appreciate that. And also, I just want to say that I don't care what your political affiliation is. I really don't care even who you voted for. What I want to impress upon you is that, unfortunately, this indictment is so lacking that it is hard to assess the strength of the case other than looking at the surrounding circumstances. They included no facts. They didn't include really, truly what the statement was. They didn't include the names of the people that they're talking about. They didn't even include dates of the hearing. What was the hearing about? Like, we all know, but based on history, but that is very strange for a federal indictment. Very, very strange. And so I just want you guys to know that that is not the norm. And because of that, that to me, as a defense attorney, is indicative of a weak case. A weak case. That's what it's indicative of. And as a matter of fact, when we look to Letitia James's indictment, even, you can see the difference, and we'll do that. But I want to answer this question first. How weird is it for an acting U.S. attorney to personally seek an indictment from the grand jury? Not weird. No, that's not weird. I don't think she'll lose her license. She will, however, lose the case. As long as she doesn't file any lies, she should be cool. Where is the weaponization of the military? Deploying the National Guard to support federal operations is with the authority of the president. It's not weaponizing the military. I would disagree with that. But that is not the topic for today. I'm sure you guys, I'm not going to discourage your conversations in the comments. Have your conversations, remain respectful. I think because this is a political topic, I do have to say the rules of this channel, which I rarely do, but it's going to get a little spicy in there. So let me just say, hey, no racism, no homophobia, no sexism. Don't do that, okay? Don't call each other slurs. Slurs are definitely going to get you blocked. Multiple spamming the same comment over and over again, that's going to get you blocked too. Just be normal and I'll talk to you and we can all talk to each other like normal people. Act like you can see each other's faces. Act like you can see each other's faces. Okay? And we're good. Yeah. It's literally not on topic. We're not talking about that. So we're going to try to stay on topic. If you want to go off topic, you could do that, but I'm not going to talk to you anymore because that's not what we're talking about. Everybody be cool. Everybody be cool. All right. So, Letitia James today has also been indicted. But before we move on to Letitia James, we want to talk about malicious prosecution. And it's a defense, it's not a charge, right? But in the federal level, there is a law firm called Klein, Thorpe, and Jenkins. And I want to use their write up about it because I actually think it's pretty good. Okay. And it was published in 2024. So before any of this stuff started happening, it's not related to this, which sometimes is actually pretty good. And it gives us some case sites. So shout out to them. I'm gonna share it with you. 1 second. I know you can't see it. Hold on. Looking at the comments over here, just so you know. Whenever I'm sharing the screen, I just want to make sure I don't, because I hate that. People will be commenting like she's not even looking at the comments, and I get it, but I'm going off of one laptop right here. I don't have a big gamer set up with like multiple screens or anything. So, please give me some grace. So again, this law firm is Klein, Thorpe, and Jenkins. There are case sites here, and so we can look at those cases as well, just to kind of check the sources. But let's get some news and insights. Let's get some news and insights on malicious prosecution at the federal level. The United States Supreme Court granted certiorari cert to the Sixth Circuit case of Schiavarini versus the city of Napoleon, Ohio, on December 13th of 2023. The case concerns the issue of how federal malicious prosecution claims are to be governed and defended against. And we know, based on Comey's attorney, I believe Fitzgerald, that they intend to make a motion to dismiss this case for malicious prosecution. Specifically, the approaches for the cause of action under consideration are the charge-specific rule utilized by the Second, Third, and 11th Circuits, or the any crime rule utilized by the Sixth Circuit. Okay, so let's see. What circuit is... Excuse me. Where did it go? I didn't close it. Oh, no, I didn't. The Eastern District of Virginia, what circuit is that in? Hold, guys. I'm going to answer this phone call real quick, and I'm going to mute you so I don't accidentally disclose something I shouldn't, like last time. So, the Eastern District of Virginia is located in the Fourth Circuit. So, according to this, no, where are you? Okay, so let's see. The Second, Third, and 11th Circuits use the any crime rule used by the Sixth Circuit. So, what about the Fourth Circuit? Okay. Because there are charge specific used by the Second, Third, and 11th Circuits, or the any crime rule used by the Sixth Circuit. As a Sixth Circuit case, Schiavarini applied the any crime rule in its holding, concluding that because probable cause existed to arrest and prosecute Schiavarini on at least one charge, his malicious prosecution and false arrest claims fail. With the court's eventual decision, the doctrine governing the cause of action could potentially be clarified into a uniform approach for the first time since the cause of action was explicitly recognized as available under the Fourth Amendment. It could also explicitly provide and require a framework for the Seventh Circuit to apply in this type of claim that, until very recently, the circuit had declined to treat as a viable cause of action in Section 1983 claims. The 1994 Supreme Court case of Albright v. Oliver was the progenitor of the malicious prosecution cause of action in federal court. This is where you get prosecuted and then you turn around and you sue for malicious prosecution. The Supreme Court held in Albright that the plaintiff's claimed right to be free from prosecution without probable cause must be judged under the Fourth Amendment rather than substantive due process. Fourth Amendment is the right to be free of unreasonable searches and seizures by the government without probable cause. The court reasoned that the Fourth Amendment, barring unreasonable search and seizures as it does, has relevance to the deprivations of liberty that go hand in hand with criminal prosecutions, and is thus the proper basis for a federal malicious prosecution claim under Section 1983. Section 1983 is the deprivation of rights under the deprivation of civil rights under the color of law. So someone acting under the color of the federal government or law, or even state and municipal governments, because you can sue the police under Section 1983, acting under the color of law, they have violated your civil rights. You can then sue them pursuant to Section 1983. Following Albright, the doctrine around this cause of action has developed a divergent manners circuit to circuit. Why am I stuttering? The doctrine around this cause of action has developed in divergent manners circuit to circuit. So different circuits are treating this doctrine differently, in that if you are maliciously prosecuted and you sue for that under Section 1983, each of the individual circuits, which contain multiple states across the country in the federal government, will treat it a bit differently, right? A plaintiff must demonstrate that, one, he has satisfied the requirements of a state law cause of action for malicious prosecution. The malicious prosecution was committed by state actors, and he was deprived of liberty. That's in Chicago. The state common law malicious prosecution elements that must be satisfied under the standard are not uniform, but typically involve an evidentiary showing that a defendant instigated a criminal proceeding with improper purpose and without probable cause. What does this mean? It means that not only can James Comey's attorney move to dismiss his case for malicious prosecution, but again, he would have to show that there's no probable cause at all to charge him with either of those charges, right? He can also sue the United States government for malicious prosecution for charging him without probable cause. With regard to the favorable termination requirement, the United States Supreme Court recently held in Thompson v. Clark that a plaintiff need only show that his prosecution ended without a conviction, rather than requiring a prospective plaintiff to show that they were outright acquitted in their prosecution. So obviously you can't sue for malicious prosecution if you're actually convicted, right? You have to be found not guilty. So we're not in the Seventh Circuit, so I'm not going to go too much into that, but that kind of gives us an idea of what malicious prosecution is. If we're looking to the civil, and I'm not saying that this is a civil claim, this is a criminal claim. He is the criminal defendant, but he's moving to dismiss for malicious prosecution, right? And in doing so, you can look to how malicious prosecution is proven in the civil context, because they're probably going to draw on some of that in order to make their motion. And it kind of gives us an idea of what malicious prosecution is. Excuse me. Something just came up. Now, under the federal rules of civil procedure, there is a motion to dismiss under the federal rules of civil procedure, and I'm trying to pull that up. Hold on. If I can. I lost my bookmark for it, of course. So dead time. Okay, here we go. Okay, let's look at a sample of a order granting a motion to dismiss for malicious prosecution to kind of get some understanding, because there is, under the federal rules of evidence, there is a actual motion to dismiss for malicious prosecution that is conceived of in the federal rules. So let us look at that. So this is just a sample. This has nothing to do with James Comey, but it's the federal court. So this is an order. On August 26, 2021, the court granted both defendants unopposed motions to dismiss plaintiff's Second Amendment complaint. Although plaintiff noted a filing appeal from the dismissal, she has now filed a motion for relief. That motion requests that this court exercise its authority under the federal rules of civil procedure to amend its dismissal order. Dang it, that's not what I was looking for. I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. Let me stop sharing. I'm a human being. I made a mistake. Hold on. That's not what I was. Okay. Oh. Hold on. Because that's not malicious prosecution. That's vexatious litigation. And I'll move on if I can't find it. Hold on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, these are all about people suing for malicious prosecution. So I'll supplement and follow up in the comments down below once I found it. It's no big deal. Okay, so let's move on to Letitia James, since she has also now been indicted. Okay. It's down. Nope, it's not that. It's DL. Here we go. Okay, stop giving me a hard time. Okay, here we go. So this was also filed in the Eastern District of Virginia, but the Norfolk Division. And it is for count 1, bank fraud, count 2, false statements to a financial institution. Okay, and it's under 18 USC 1344, 18 USC 1014. And do you see this? It's 5 pages long and it has actual facts in it, allegations of what she did. Okay. Once again, I take issue with the president of the United States directing the Justice Department to indict people. And as a result of that, firing people that refuse to do it. I think that that is in and of itself per se unethical. Let's look at each of these for their own merit. Letitia James was a resident of Brooklyn, New York, and the borrower on a Fannie Mae. Oh my God. See, now this right here, this is a real going after your political opponents. You go and you go through their finances, like, and make sure they dot every I and cross every T. And anywhere they make a mistake, you charge them for that. And I don't know if she actually did anything wrong. I don't know anything, but this is like more classic retaliation. That's crazy. Okay, so she was the borrower on a Fannie Mae-backed mortgage loan for the property located at that address in Norfolk, Virginia. OVM Financial, also known as Old Virginia Mortgage, and Annie Mac was a mortgage lending business located in Virginia Beach, Virginia, engaged in the business of originating and underwriting residential mortgage loans, including those backed by the Federal National Mortgage Association, Fannie Mae. OVM Financial qualified as a financial institution within the meaning of 18 U.S.C. Section 20, subsection 10. Fannie Mae was a federally chartered corporation that purchased and guaranteed mortgages operating as a government-sponsored enterprise under the oversight of the Federal Housing Finance Agency. First Savings Bank was a state-chartered FDIC-insured financial institution headquartered in Jeffersonville, Indiana, which acquired mortgage loans through assignment of acquisition. First Savings Bank qualified as a financial institution within the meaning of 18 U.S.C. Section 20. On or about August 17th of 2020, James, a sole borrower, purchased the 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom property located at this address for approximately $137,000, financed with a mortgage loan of approximately $109,000, backed by Fannie Mae. The loan was originated by OVM Financial under assigned second home rider, which required James, as a sole borrower, to occupy and use the property as her secondary residence, and prohibited its use as a time-sharing or other shared ownership arrangement or agreement that requires her either to rent the property or give any other person any control over the occupancy or use of the property. Despite these representations, the Perrone property was not occupied or used by James as a secondary residence and was instead used as a rental investment property, renting the property to a family of 3. The misrepresentation allowed James to attain a favorable loan term not available for investment properties, included a note rate of 3%, avoiding a 0.815% higher comparable investment property rate of 3.815%, resulting in approximately $17,837 in rate savings over the life of the loan. A seller credit of approximately $3,288, exceeding the seller credit for investment properties of approximately $1,096 for total ill-gotten gains of approximately $18,933 over the life of the loan. James's universal property application for homeowners insurance indicated owner-occupied non-seasonal use, further misrepresenting the intended use of the property. James filed Schedule E tax forms under penalties of perjury, treating the Perrone property as rental real estate, reporting fair rental days, 0 personal use days, thousands of dollars in rents received, and claiming deductions for expenses relating to the property, further contradicting the second home classification. The loan was acquired by or assigned to First Savings Bank on March of 2021, exposing it to risks associated with the misrepresented loan. The acts described herein occurred within the Eastern District of Virginia. So I just want to make it clear that my understanding of this is my first time ever reading it, is that Letitia James is alleged to have purchased a home in Norfolk, that she misrepresented that in order to obtain a homeowner's loan, which has a lower interest rate, that she was going to be using this as a second home, that she was going to be occupying this residency, that instead she was using it for commercial purposes, maybe renting it out on Airbnb or something like that. And so this would be frauding the mortgage companies because they were only issuing you that loan on that lower interest rate simply because you said that you're going to occupy the residence and then you don't. So that's what that allegation is. At least here, I'm not saying she did anything. I don't know. We're going to have to see, right? And obviously, there's a separate question about whether or not this is politically motivated, which clearly I believe that it is. But on the face of it, at least this looks like an indictment. Do you see the difference between what James Comey's indictment looks like and what this indictment looks like? Because James Comey, it looks to me like they combed through all of James Comey's finances and couldn't find anything. And so they indicted him for lying during a hearing, right? But they can't really get into complete details because it's kind of BS, right? Here, maybe they have something. I don't know. At least enough probable cause to bring charges. We'll see what happens in court. I'm going to keep an open mind, right? But if you see the difference, this is what an indictment looks like. And Comey's indictment is not what an indictment looks like in the federal context. Some state courts will certainly do short form indictments, and those are allowed. They do short form indictments in my county. It's rare that they have long form indictments. The Attorney General's office for the state of Maryland usually does long form indictments. The state's attorney's offices for the different counties usually do short form, right? But that short form indictment for James Comey is a complete anathema to what federal indictments normally look like. Count 1. The allegations in paragraph 1 through 12 are incorporated. From on or about August 7th, 2020 through at least January of 2024 in the Eastern District of Virginia and elsewhere, the defendant Letitia James did knowingly execute and attempt to execute a scheme and artifice to defraud OVM Financial and First Savings Bank financial institutions and to obtain monies, funds, and credits owned by and under the custody and control of OVM Financial and First Savings Bank by means of false and fraudulent pretenses. What's interesting here is that if this is true, and I don't know that it is, right? But if this is true, even if her prosecution was brought in order to take her down because she prosecuted Trump, so for unethical reasons, the prosecution would still be allowed. I think there's a difference with Comey because it's related to his testimony involving Trump. It is part and partial, or at least involving a Trump appointee, right? Mike Flynn. It is part and partial to the charges that they are bringing these charges against him. And it's quite possible that there isn't really any probable cause to charge him at all. So I don't know how much of a chance Letitia James has to dismiss this for malicious prosecution. I don't know how much of a chance that Comey has, but I can kind of conceptualize it for Comey a bit better than I can for James. That's not to say that these charges are valid or invalid, because I don't know. I haven't seen the evidence. I don't know. But what I do know is that a lot of the times when it's perceived that someone's being politically attacked, that's why they go after their finances, because it's like, if you are committing this financial crime, doesn't matter why we looked at you, you were committing the crime for us to find. And as we saw with the insight from the law firm, when it comes to a claim of malicious prosecution, if there's probable cause for the crime, at least even for one charge, you can't prevail on a lawsuit for that. So would you be able to dismiss a case for that? The scheme involved falsely representing the Perrone property as a secondary residence to obtain favorable mortgage terms, while using it as an investment property with no intended or actual personal occupancy or use by her. Count 2, false statement to a financial institution, 18 U.S.C. Section 1014. The allegations in paragraphs 1 through 12 are realleged and incorporated herein. I'm petting Jazz. That's why I'm rocking back and forth. From on or about July 8th, 2020, through at least August 31st, 2020, in the Eastern District of Virginia and elsewhere, the defendant, Letitia A. James, did knowingly make and cause to be made false statements and reports for the purpose of influencing the action of OVM Financial, a Fannie Mae backed lender, upon an application for a loan, in that James represented and affirmed in uniform residential loan applications and related documents that the Perrone property would be used as a secondary residence, when in truth and fact, as James then knew, the property was intended and used as an investment property with no intended or actual personal occupancy or use by her. And then they're going to ask for forfeiture of the property, I'm assuming. Let's see. Pursuant to Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 32.2a and Title 18 U.S.C. Section 982a2a, upon conviction of the offenses in counts 1 and 2, the defendant Letitia A. James, you okay? You okay? Yeah. The defendant, I thought I poked her. The defendant, Letitia A. James, shall forfeit to the United States any property constituting or derived from proceeds obtained directly or indirectly as a result of such violations, including but not limited to a money judgment in the amount of $18,933, I guess, which would be the amount that she hasn't gotten that money yet because it's over the life of the loan. And I'm sure that the loan has not matured. Most loans are like 30 years. So I'm sure that the mortgage has not matured and she hasn't gotten that difference yet. But they're claiming the difference between the interest rate that she saved upon and what it would have actually been had she taken out a loan for commercial property. If any of the property described above as a result of any act or omission of the defendant cannot be located, has been transferred or sold, has been placed beyond the jurisdiction of the court, has been substantially diminished in value, has been commingled with other property which cannot be divided without difficulty, the United States shall be entitled to a forfeiture of substitute property pursuant to this. Oh, that's interesting. So if you liquidate the property, they'll just get a substitute property that you own. And that is the indictment also brought by Lindsay Halligan. Here's Miss Halligan again, all up and down. She's in Arlington. I mean, or was it Alexandria? Hold on, let me see. What was it? She's in Alexandria. She's in Norfolk, Virginia. She's all over the place. So she's just a Trump's appointed person to go around and prosecute his political rivals. Okay. But what I would like to do is go back, because there is an article about Letitia James, and I want us to look at it because I think that it was helpful to look at the context with Comey. Okay. Wait, no, I do. Wait, hold on. I forgot my password. I have a subscription. Come on. Give me 1 second, guys. I gotta log in. Okay. I freaking never ever know my password to anything. I don't know what my password is, guys. Okay. Let me figure it out. Jazzy. Okay. Okay, I'm good. I don't need to upgrade. I already have a subscription. Leave me alone. Oh my gosh. Why are these websites so noisy? All these pop-ups, it's so annoying. Oh my gosh. Okay. Now let me share with you guys. Someone said this is me. This is, yes, me arguing with my PC daily. This is me arguing with everything that's tech every single day. A closer look at the counts in the Letitia James indictment. New York's attorney general, so she's an elected official. She's an attorney who was elected to be the attorney general for the state of New York, is accused of falsely listing if you don't know, an attorney general is the head prosecutor for state crimes. And then they also have the head prosecutor for federal crimes. That's the attorney general. And then at the local level for the counties and the cities, right? They have state's attorney, Commonwealth attorney, depending on where you are, right? And what do they call them? The district attorney is what they call them in New York. So they have different names, but the attorney general will be the top of either the state or the federal government. And she is the top prosecuting attorney of the state of New York. She called the charges baseless. For months, this article will be credited to Jonathan Bromwich. For months, high-ranking officials in the Trump administration have accused several of the president's enemies of mortgage fraud. The two-count indictment of New York's Attorney General Letitia James is the first of those allegations to appear in the form of criminal charges. The indictment refers to a home Ms. James purchased in Norfolk, Virginia in 2020. It accuses her of, there must be a football game going on. My group chat is blowing up and my friends are talking about football. So I'm assuming that's football or some other ball, some sports ball. I love sports, but I like gymnastics and tennis and I like rugby, the female rugby players. I like WNBA a lot. And I love track. Track is my favorite. So it's like track, then tennis, then gymnastics, then WNBA. And so anything else, I am not interested. It accuses her of having said in loan documents that she would use the home as a secondary residence, but instead she used the home as a rental property. That, they say, violated her mortgage agreement. And it would. I agree it would if that's what happened, which barred her from renting the property and allowed her to receive favorable loan terms. So basically, if you're unfamiliar, many times when you're taking out a mortgage for a home, they want you to specify, are you going to live here? Or are you going to use this for income? If you're going to live there, they're usually going to give you a lower interest rate. If you're going to use it to generate income, they're going to give you a higher interest rate. And you have to be honest with them. You should not lie to them. So the first count of the indictment accuses Ms. James of committing bank fraud by seeking to defraud two financial institutions, OVM Financial and First Savings Bank. The second accuses her of making false statements to OVM Financial. By misrepresenting how she would use the home, the indictment says Ms. James stands to save about $19,000 over the life of the loan. And they want that $19,000 in as a fine, essentially, but that doesn't make any sense. You wouldn't have that money right now. In a statement, the U.S. attorney who secured the indictment, a former personal lawyer to President Trump and an insurance lawyer, again, that would be like me doing any type of insurance law. It would be like drinking soup with a fork, said that the charges represented intentional criminal acts and tremendous breaches of the public trust. In a statement, Ms. James, who has long been one of Mr. Trump's foremost adversaries, called the indictment nothing more than a continuation of the president's desperate weaponization of our justice system. She called the charges baseless. I would like to know if they are or not. Okay. The case was initiated in April after Bill Pulte, head of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, sent a criminal referral to the Justice Department related to homes that Ms. James bought in Norfolk, Virginia in 2023 and in New York City decades ago. But the house the indictment focuses on was not included in that referral. That house, also in Norfolk, was purchased in 2020. Interesting. So it seems like he referred it and was like, hey, DOJ, there's this house in Norfolk that was bought in 2023, house in New York City bought many years ago. Maybe something's going on there. Look into it. But they don't indict on that. They indict on the house she bought in 2020. Ms. James and her lawyer, Abby D. Lowell, who have defended paperwork related to the 2023 Norfolk house in detail, have yet to discuss the 2020 purchase, in part because it was not previously known that prosecutors were scrutinizing that loan. So apparently they were very loud about the 2023 loan, and Letitia James has already been putting out her defense about that, but they were like, surprise, look at your house in 2020. They should have prepared to address that, because of course they're going to comb through every single thing that you own, every single bank account, every single tax return. There's just no way that they don't, once you know that they want to indict you. Still, career federal prosecutors in Virginia found little evidence to indicate Ms. James knowingly misled banks or was dishonest in her loan paperwork, according to people familiar with the investigation who spoke on the condition of anonymity. See, and that is why I want to know what's being said around this thing, because at least with this indictment, I understand why you're indicting. There are some facts, whether they are true or not, whether they're proven or disproven. Knowledge is an element, or I shouldn't say knowledge. Intent is an element of every single offense. And knowledge is one of the types of intents, right? You can knowingly do something, you can willfully do something, you can recklessly do something, you can intentionally do something, you can do something with premeditation and deliberation, right? And every crime requires a certain intent, mens rea, mental state, right? Knowledge of the thing that they're committing. And here it's a knowing intent, meaning that she knows that she defrauded these banks. The prosecutors, the federal prosecutors in Virginia, the people whose job it is to get indictments, the ones who can get indictments because you can indict a ham sandwich, were previously saying they were not going to indict her because the evidence was thin, that she had the mens rea, the intent, that she knew that she was defrauding any banks. And so that is concerning to me, if that is in fact true, that they decided to bulldoze this through anyway. But here we are. So we're going to have to see the actual facts as they play out in court, unless some type of preliminary motion gets rid of this case. Mr. Lowell said Thursday evening that he was deeply concerned that this case is driven by President Trump's desire for revenge. Why would he want revenge? Let's return to Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia. And once again, check all sources. You can go to this article yourself, click on the links, go to the bottom down here. These are the sources that they relied upon. Make sure that these sources are accurate. Do not just take things at face value. I am doing this as a shortcut. This is a live stream video, maybe podcast, you could call it maybe. This is a live stream podcast. Let's say that I am an attorney. I'm not a political analyst. And I am sitting in my home, in my office, in my house, talking to you. You should not trust what I say just because I am looking at you from YouTube. And that applies to anyone on here that is a political or legal commentator. Just because we say it doesn't mean that you should trust it. Verify every single thing that is said to you online. There are bad actors that are on here that are intent with spreading an agenda. So I want you to do your own independent research, even though we're talking about this. I'm saying this to you as someone who is left-leaning, who is a public defender, who is maybe somebody you would call like a, I don't know, a lefty or whatever you would say, right? Don't even trust me. Don't trust the left. Don't trust the right. Research everything yourself. All right, moving on. Someone in the comments says that she was letting a relative use it, then that would not be for commercial purposes. But that's also not owner occupation. So I wonder how the law comes down on that. I would think that it's a little different when you're a lawyer too. But I would think that a lay person might think, I bought this house, I'm not renting it out, I'm letting my relatives stay here. Like, I'm making sure that my family is good now that I'm making money. That's the thing a lot of people do when they have the means to. Might not think that that is going against the loan terms as long as they're not using it to rent it and getting rental income. But I don't know. So we'll see. We'll see what the facts bear out in court. All right. Oh, and Law Nerd Amber said something that I completely agree with. And don't use Chat GPT or AI. Guys, please, I am begging you. Chat GPT and artificial intelligence are going to be the death of us. We need to learn how to think for ourselves again. I swear to God, I'm going to give you guys a perfect example of how we are all over relying on technology as I sit here and use all this technology all around me to bring you this live stream. Real quick. So I'm a supervisor and I have a team of attorneys that I supervise. And we were doing a team meeting today. And I, sent up the Google link and we were going back and forth on timing and the agenda and what we're going to talk about. And I'm like, yeah, link's there, ready to go. I'm sitting on the link. I'm ready to get started. I'm typing up. I'm just getting it's like, say the meeting's going to start at 12. It's 11:55. I just got the link pulled up. I've got the screen ready to go, ready to let everybody into the meeting. And then I get a knock on my door and it's one of the people that I supervise. And he goes, hey, Natalie, we're all here in the office. You want to just meet in person? And I was like, oh, yeah, we are all physically here in the office today. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes people are, in court, remote, traveling to and from the jail, and they just come in on their phone or on their computer because they can't do it in person. And we'd gotten so used to doing everything virtually that I was like, I forgot that we're human beings. And he was like, yeah, we can't forget our humanity. We need to talk to each other. And it was one of the best meetings we've had as a team since I started supervising them. Remember that we're people, we're human beings, and we should not rely on computers to tell us how to think. Okay, so Letitia Ann Tish James is a American lawyer and politician serving since 2019 as the 67th Attorney General of New York. Having won the 2018 election to succeed Barbara Underwood, a member of the Democratic Party, James is the first African American and first woman to be elected New York Attorney General. Born and raised in Brooklyn, James graduated from Lehman College in the Bronx. Oh, Lehman. I know Lehman. Before obtaining her Juris Doctor degree at Howard University, which I also know in Washington, D.C. It's my husband's alma mater. Ooh, that was a good burp. Was it nice? Feel better now? Good girl. No, it's not time for a break. We're talking. Mind your business. I have an alert to make sure that I don't doom scroll on any social media for too long. And it came up, it was like, time for a break. I was like, no. So she got her JD, that's her law degree or juris. So we are technically doctors. We got Juris Doctorate degrees. It's like someone told me oh, it's like a PhD. And I'm like, it doesn't really feel like it, but whatever. But she has her Juris Doctorate degree from Howard University in Washington, D.C. She worked as a public defender, then on staff in the New York State Assembly, nice, and later as a New York State Assistant Attorney General in the Brooklyn Regional Office. James served as a member of the New York City Council from 2004 to 2013. Council members are elected officials that represent the different districts in the city of New York. They're kind of like a localized legislature, kind of, very important, very, very important. She represented the 35th district, which includes Brooklyn neighborhoods of Clinton Hill, Fort Greene, parts of Crown Heights, Prospect Heights, and Bedford-Stuyvesant. I used to live in Bed-Stuy. Bed-Stuy, do or die. James chaired the committees on economic development and sanitation and served on several others. From 2013 to 2018, she was the New York City public advocate, making her the first African American woman to be elected to and hold citywide office in New York City. James's office filed a civil suit against Donald Trump that resulted in penalties and a fine of more than $400 million, which continued to grow with accrued interest. A divided appeals court upheld Trump's liability but voided the penalty as excessive. Both sides appealed to the New York State Supreme Court. James was briefly a candidate in the gubernatorial election, but suspended her campaign in December of 2021, opting to instead run for re-election as Attorney General. In October of 2025, following pressure from Trump to prosecute his political foes, James was federally indicted on one count of bank fraud and one count of making a false statement to a financial institution. So that's who Letitia James is, and that's her relevance to Donald Trump. She essentially, I say prosecuted, but she really sued him on behalf of the city of New York. And she won and got a massive judgment against him. Of course, the judgment was reduced upon appeal. Okay, we've got some great comments coming in, so let me go ahead and check those. And thank you guys so much for being with us while we try to understand this indictment. Jazzy. Jazz is like, rub my belly, rub my back, rub my stomach, give me a massage. Because normally it's 9 o'clock. Me and Jazz would be in bed. DJ would be at my feet. And Jazz would be getting a rub down. So she's like, I don't care if we're in bed or not. I want my rub down. And then my husband would be on the game. And then she'd run downstairs and do the same to him for a couple of minutes. She runs back and forth because I like to chill in the bedroom. He likes to chill on the couch. And she'll run back and forth between us and be like, rub my belly, rub my belly. She's really aggressive about it. It's really cute. Woo! Oh, yes. Hold on. This is not a super chat. I don't care. Everyone should buy physical media, not only because they're starting to ban things, but streaming services are charging for movies and shows. Yes. Buy your physical media. I am starting to buy physical books more. I used to read books on my phone, on my iBooks app on my phone, but I don't do that anymore. And also I have these like great bookcases that we had installed downstairs and in my husband's office. Maybe I'll show you them one day. I've been thinking about this for a couple years to live stream from my husband's office. I think he's watching. Brandon, can I live stream from your office, babe? I don't know. But he's got this awesome bookcase that's built in. And I'm like, I want to show off all these books that I've been reading, but they're all digital. If the power goes out, if your battery dies, if the internet goes offline, then you no longer have access to your media and to your entertainment. It's a great, great, great point. Okay. Crazy Cat Queen says, and thank you for the super chat. And that is why I buy lots and lots of used books for personal library. Fight evil, read books, especially the banned ones. You know, banning books is just like so draconian and crazy to me. It's something I learned about in history class, you know, middle school, high school, college. People can say what they want about public school, but as a product of New York City public schools myself, right? I feel like I have retained so much information from what I learned from like social studies, history, biology in high school. Like I still remember some of that stuff. And one of the things I remember learning about was yellow journalism, which is propaganda from the government made to seem like it's journalism, and the control of your media and like outlawing certain thoughts and even certain types of fiction because they promoted distasteful ideas. And I think that is indicative of an unhealthy society when you see that starting to run rampant. I think providing things with context, even things that I find objectionable, is better than banning them and burning them. Burning books, that's so crazy to me. You're going to burn books, but ask ChatGPT how to write an essay instead of writing it yourself. You're going to ask ChatGPT to write an essay for you, but you're going to burn books. That's crazy. We're losing our brain power. That's crazy to me. Anyway. Yes, like those things. Yes. Yes. Here we go. 1984, Animal Farm, Brave New World was required reading for me as well. Now, do I say your name Ukub, Uquab? How do I pronounce that name? I don't know. Every time I see your name come up, I'm like, I don't know how to say that. Dear Grok, which book should I burn? That is so ridiculous. It cracked me up good. I love that. Okay, guys. So while we're getting ready to... Okay. Let's look at the handsome guy. Look at him. DJ, would you like to say anything to your adoring public? Are you there? Oh boy. Don't yeet yourself onto the floor. Don't do it. Let me just hold you up a little longer. He's so precious. Isn't he the cutest boy that you've ever seen? He's so cute. Okay, I'll let you down. He's there. Here he goes, trying to like flop himself down on the floor. Oh my goodness. Brittany, you made it, but just a tad too late because we're about to head up out of here. We read through James Comey indictment. We read through Letitia James's indictment. Let me kind of give you some of my closing thoughts on this. I think it's pretty clear, in my opinion, that both of these prosecutions are politically motivated. I think that James Comey's indictment on its face is weaker than Letitia James's. And I think it's interesting and concerning and alarming that many prosecutors have quit in protest or refused to bring these prosecutions. That is not the norm. Okay? We say this about public defenders. All public defenders are oppositional defiant. You got to be. You know, we like to buck the system. We don't like to follow rules. We dance to the beat. We march to the beat of our own drummer, right? Prosecutors are goody two-shoes. They're rule followers. They're the kids that were the hall monitors. They were the RA that actually took their job seriously and like told on you if you drank in your dorm or something, right? Like they're the good upstanding citizens. And they genuinely, it's not a game, it's not a joke. You have to meet these people, talk to these people. They absolutely believe in the rule of law and following orders and rules, right? And so for them to say no to the brass, to their chain of command, that is not normal. Yes, goody two shoes. Exactly. They are. And I love them for it because they're in that role. They need to be. We need those people there. You know, I think people look at attorneys kind of like in a cynical light, like that defense attorney doesn't actually believe what they're saying. That prosecutor doesn't actually believe what they're saying. But I would like to say a majority of the time we do. We believe in the ethics and the ideals that each of us follows on our various sides, on our various places across the aisle from each other, right? And we rely on each other to perform our duties ethically. And so for them to say, I'm out, I want no parts of this, I'm sitting on my hair, sorry. For them to say that means that something is wrong. Okay? Shout out to all of you. Please make sure that you like the video, that you subscribe. And if you're interested in becoming a member, please become a member. I am currently filming a video that will be shorter. I'm filmed on my phone, and I'm just doing a little bit of editing to it right now. That it will be shorter, but it's about Drake's lawsuit against UMG. He sued Universal Music Group for Kendrick Lamar's "Not Like Us" for defamation of character because Kendrick called him a PDF file, and that was dismissed for the fact that it was a matter of opinion and not defamation. So I'm going to cover that. It's very embarrassing for Drake. Not only did he lose the rap battle, he lost in the court of law. So he lost in the hip hop streets, and he also lost in the court streets. Wasn't good for him. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. Please be well. Everybody do something good for yourselves tonight. You know, whatever that may be, to make yourselves feel better. And don't get too bogged down. Don't let the bastards get you down. Have a good night. Bye.